everyone, it's Tara. This is our very last online small group gathering that we're having today, and I want to thank you for joining me during this time. It's been really great to get to know some of you and to hear some of your messages and hear your stories and hear what God's done in your life and the testimonies. I want to thank you for sharing those with me, and I really hope that this has ministered to you and it's helped you grow in your walk with God. And I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. I feel honored that you have let me be a part of your life these past 6 weeks. And I'm so thankful for those that joined me throughout this time, that they were able to share their life experiences with you as well. And so I hope that you learned from them and that you were able to get some wisdom from their lives and their personal experience as well. So with that being said, I want to kind of dig in and do a short little last devotional together. And I wanted to start by just kind of sharing a little bit of what Todd and I went through probably 2 years ago now, almost 2 years ago now, and kind of share the testimony of what God has done to bring us through the process. And so I'm really excited to share this with you because it is very personal to us, and I think it's really it would be helpful, hopefully, for you as well in situations that you may be going through. Just to have some of the reassurance that God's spoken to our lives, I would like to speak into your life as well. So about 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago yesterday, was our very first launch team meeting for the cathedral. Todd and I were in Kalamazoo. We were in a church where we just loved the people there. They were amazing people. But we couldn't shake our calling to come to Flint. We just couldn't let that go. And we knew that the timing was right for us to move on. And so we ended up coming to Flint in October of 2014. And we moved into our home, which we love our house. And in November, we began to have meetings with our launch team. And what we didn't realize was the leadership stretching and pain that would happen over the course of really our first year of launch. But I mean, really even until today, you know, we have things that stretch us and grow us and mold us and make us more Christ-like. And we had no clue what we were getting ready to experience when we stepped in that very first Sunday and kind of sat down with this small group. I think there was like 15 people there at the time, and just kind of talked and prayed together and really dreamed together about what the cathedral would look like. So fast forward to March of 2015, and we launched the church. And even in the midst of that, those few months from November until March, we began to recognize some of the areas in our life that we were not prepared for, and that God was starting to stretch us and grow us and conform us to be the type of people that could pastor a church and love people and be there for them and genuinely care and pour into them. And with that came a lot of pain. There were some things that were happening with us that was painful for us to walk through. And we look into March and we launch, and we have a great launch. And then the next week we have like 70 people show up, and we were like, ugh, what happened? Like what we weren't supposed to have that kind of drop off. And Todd and I began to go, why isn't this working the way we thought it would work? And then we began to have some different things happen in our lives that caused so much pain for both of us, and we had to walk through that. And I remember we had purchased tickets, we had been given tickets from the Association of Related Churches, ARC, which is a church planting organization that we are a part of. And they gave us free tickets to come down to their ARC conference. And in that time, Todd and I we were in a whirlwind. We were pastoring a church now. We were going through, different things that senior pastors go through. And we were trying to learn how to do this at the same time while being mobile, while essentially having the church live in our basement or in a trailer. And we were just trying to figure everything out, and we didn't really know how to do any of that. And I remember Todd and I having a conversation about just the struggle and the pain that we were going through during that time, and feeling very alone in the process. And we weren't alone. We had amazing mentors, and we had people that we had a relationship with through ARC. But there was that sense they weren't here. They weren't in Flint. They weren't able to be with us every Sunday morning. So on our car ride down, we began to kind of talk about just some of the things that we were struggling with, and having a hard time to wrap our minds around just this process that we were going through. And we weren't throwing in the towel. It wasn't anything like that. We were just not sure how to process these emotions. And when we got down to the conference, there was one night, we had to bring Lydia with. This was before we had our other two children. And we had to bring Lydia with because we didn't have anybody to babysit her at that time. So she came with us to the conference. She got really sick. I mean, really sick. She was barfing everywhere. And we were in the car driving to Jacksonville, Florida, and we had her in the back throwing up in the bag, and it was it was a nightmare. And one night we were out hanging out with some people, and she just puked all over the parking lot, and we were like, oh my goodness, I felt so bad for her. And so we went to this last session, and we had really debated whether or not we were going to go to this last session because of her being sick. But she kind of seemed to perk up a little bit and seemed like she was doing a little bit better. So we decided that we were going to go, and if she started not feeling well, we would just leave. And we were in worship service, and the worship team was just, awesome. They're just amazing. So if you ever go down to an art conference, you will totally enjoy it. So go. But anyways, that's just kind of a side note for me. So they're in the middle of worship, and the song "You Make Me Brave" comes on. It's sung by Bethel, and they started singing the song, and I was just kind of listening to the words. And I look over and I see Lydia standing there, and she had her arms raised high, and she was singing, and she had her eyes closed, and I just began to just kind of stand there in awe, watching our little girl just worship really with abandon in that moment. And I just began to close my eyes, and I was challenged to focus in more on worshiping the Lord in that moment, and not thinking about all the things that I was dealing with or that we were going through. And I remember in that moment, the words to the song, which says, "For you are for us, you are not against us." And I began to weep. And it began to hit me that God was not against us in this process. He was growing us in this process. And I look over at Todd, and Todd is just standing there weeping. And we just stood there singing the song and recognizing, Lord, you are for us. You're not against us. And even though we never vocalized that we felt like God was against us, we were actually feeling that, because we felt like, Lord, you called us to do this. Why is it so hard? Why are you challenging us so much? And the reality is he was for us. And that's why he was allowing us to go through some of those things, because he needed to grow us. He needed to stretch us. He needed to get us beyond where we were. And that was how we were going to learn to do it. And it was a difficult pill to swallow in the moment. It was really hard for us to be okay with difficulty and with trial. And we needed humility instilled into us in that moment. And that's what God was doing in the process and in the pain of all of that. And So I just want to encourage you with this. Just because things in your life are not easy, just because things in your life may be challenging, God is not against you. God is for you. He is for your growth. He is for you conforming into his likeness. He is not against you. In fact, in Romans chapter 8, verse 31, it says, if God is for us, who can be against us? And it's funny because if you actually look through every single different translation of that verse, if you look in the NASB, you look in the NIV, you look in the King James Version, if you look in the New King James Version, if you look in the ESV, like you go through the list, it says in every single one of those, the translation actually says, if God is for us, God is for you. And he is for you because he loves you. But being for you doesn't mean that your life will always be easy. And it doesn't mean that things in your life that are struggles and trials will not happen. But I can promise you this, that those things in your life that are hard, and it's hard to wrap your mind around, why did this happen? Or why did I have to go through that? It did not happen because God was against you. And I want you to understand that. And it's important as a Christ follower for you to be able to wrap your mind around the fact that God is not for your ease. He is not for your finances. He is not for you having a popularity, ego boosting life. But he is for your holiness, and he is for your redemption, and he is for you to become more like him. And he is not against you because he loves you. And there are times in our lives where we are the ones that are responsible for the hurt in our own lives. And he allows us to experience the pain of our own mistakes. But in those times where you're feeling down and maybe you are suffering some of the consequences of your own decisions, understand that God is not absent in that, and he will use that for his glory. And I want to encourage you to recognize that you're not alone. In Hebrews, it talks about this great cloud of witnesses that they're cheering you on, and they understand what it was like to live here on earth, pursuing God, and really going against some of our own nature to lay aside some of our selfishness and lay aside our pride and embrace some of the suffering. And that's what I want to encourage you to do, is recognize that in the midst of pain, instead of fighting against it, embrace the pain, feel the pain, walk through the process, and watch God transform your life. I think of 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17 and 18, and it says, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us in a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things that are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. God is doing a work in you, even in your pain, even in your suffering. God's doing a deep work in you if you will allow him to. And he will transform you to become more like him, and he will use this for his glory. In Hebrews 13, 5 and 6, it says, for God has said, I will never fail you. I will never forsake you. That is why we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper, so I will not be afraid. What can mere mortal men do to me? So I want to encourage you. This is our very last small group gathering, and I want to encourage you to embrace what God is taking you through. Don't fight against it. Here in Michigan, it gets so cold, and we're getting ready to enter into that season. And it's almost worse when you go outside and you try to fight against the cold and you try to like pretend like it's, not there, or you like just shiver. But there's something that happens usually in like January or February where it's just, you just embrace it. You just are like, it's here to stay and I have to deal with it. And you just like lean into it and you're like, it's cold and I'm dealing with it and I will get through it because March is coming. And it's the same with trials in our life. Don't fight the trials. Don't fight the things that are happening that may be painful. Lean into it. Allow God to take those things and ask Him, what are you going to teach me? How are you going to change me in this process? And allow Him to transform your life and to make you more like Him in the process. And who knows the impact that you can that you will have in other people's lives as a result of the things that God will teach you through this process. So I just want to encourage you with that. And I want to thank you so much for allowing me into your homes and allowing me into your lives these past 6 weeks. And I'm really excited about the testimonies that you have shared with me. And I'm thankful that God has used this to work in your life. And I hope that you can take some of these principles and some of these truths that we've discussed over the past 6 weeks, and you can help them, or help translate them to other people and help them walk through some difficulties, whether it's through grief or whether you're walking through different areas of needing balance in your life, or whether they're needing, to just step out and do what God has called them to do. Whatever it is, I hope and pray that you have been able to take life lessons for yourself and God's spoken to you. But I also hope that you can translate that to the people that are in your workplace, or that are your neighbors, or perhaps family members. I hope that you are able to take this and to use this, because you are an ambassador for Christ and you are called to share the gospel. Even if you're a bank teller, you are called to share the gospel, and you are what the Bible calls a royal priesthood. And so I want to empower you to be the best Christ follower that you can possibly be. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And I love you, and stay in contact with me. And we'll see you again sometime soon.